Hello, and welcome to my video on A Walk in the Dust, the story about everyone's favorite green cat. In this event, we'll be traveling back in time and accompanying Kal'tsit on her journey as she travels across Terra. I'll first give a brief summary of the story, and then go over the lore and talk about what exactly happened in this event. I'll also be talking about a few things mentioned in earlier chapters, but I'll do my best to explain everything. So, without further ado, let's jump in. "22 years ago in Sargon, a Colombian research team is attacked by several mercenary groups. A mercenary finds the last survivor, a young man named Elliot Grove, and tries to kill him for the suitcase he's carrying. At this moment, Elliot is rescued by the sudden appearance of a woman and a strange beast, and he recognizes the woman as Kal'tsit, whom his mentors had introduced to him many years ago. As the various mercenary groups double-cross each other and infighting breaks out, Kal'tsit leads Elliot deeper into Sargon. 17 years ago, after the massacre of the scientists working on the sarcophagus, Kal'tsit and one of her surviving students, Lilia, reunite in a small Ursus village. Lilia is planning to take revenge on those who were responsible for the scientist's death, starting with Grand Duke Vanya, the former chief of staff of the 4th Army which carried out the massacre. Kal'tsit tries to persuade her, but Lilia is determined, and asks for Kal'tsit's assistance. With Lilia disguised as a doctor, and Kal'tsit as a servant, they infiltrate the nursing home the Grand Duke is residing in. When they try to approach the Grand Duke, the guards, strangely, only allows Kal'tsit to enter. Lying on the bed is Vanya, a frail old man who has turned blind, and he calmly asks Kal'tsit who sent her. He tells her that the higher-ups want him dead, and won't allow him to see a doctor. Kal'tsit says she's only here as her duty, and Vanya thanks her for releasing him from his suffering before she injects him with poison. Slowly, the Grand Duke drifts into sleep. 13 years ago, Kal'tsit is invited to an upper-class gathering in a Victorian mansion by Earl Vincent. Here, she meets Haiti, the young daughter of Sir Thompson, whom Kal'tsit has connections with. As the nobles talk about politics, world situations, and gossip, Kal'tsit and Haiti head outside, where Haiti gives Kal'tsit 2 letters, one from Victoria and one from Kazdel. The snow suddenly turns black. Kal'tsit sends Haiti back into the mansion, while she faces against the will of Ursus, an Emperor's blade. The blade wants Kal'tsit dead for the assassination of Vanya, and also because Kal'tsit just knows too much. Kal'tsit brings out Monster, who clashes with the blade. With both Kal'tsit and the blade sustaining heavy injuries, Kal'tsit tells the blade that she assassinated the Grand Duke to avoid the political turmoil that comes with his death if another faction were to kill him, and convinces the blade to not detonate himself, which would inevitably lead to a conflict between Ursus and Victoria. In the end, the blade accepts Kal'tsit's words and leaves. We return again to 22 years ago. Elliot is shocked to learn that his mentor's work is actually a weapon prototype in disguise, which is why several Sargon chieftains have sent mercenaries to retrieve it, and also why Kal'tsit has rescued him to avoid it falling into the wrong hands. In a black market, they find a fortune teller named Old Ising, who arranges them a vehicle out of Sargon and supplies. Elliot, however, decides to stay with Old Ising. Elliot tells Kal'tsit that he memorized his mentor's work and won't need what's in the suitcase to reproduce it. He opens the suitcase, taking out a blue originium crystal sample, the foundation of their research. Upon learning that this sample is unique, he smashes it, and the scattered dust turns him into an infected. 22 years later, Passenger, after taking his revenge on the Sargon chieftains, gives everything he has to Rose Island as payment for his medical treatment, just to see Kal'tsit one more time. When the two finally meet, he asks her if she's going to suddenly disappear one day like she did before, but we don't get to hear Kal'tsit's answer. So, as usual, I highly recommend you to read this event to get the full experience. The writing in Arknights has its ups and downs, but this event is, in my opinion, definitely one of the best. But we also have a lot of lore to cover, considering that this event introduced a brand new threat to Terra. We'll start off with some of the new information that we got on the different nations. If this isn't what interests you, the timestamps are in the description. Sargon. Outside the mobile cities, Sargon has many settlements and villages scattered about. Further south, outside the boundaries of the world map, there is what is known as the Scorched Lands, which remains unexplored by humanity. Thousands of years ago, a Kranta Pasha with Knights Mora lineage led a march down south into the Scorched Lands in order to build a new city. In the end, he almost succeeded, but the Pasha's arts affected old Ising for over 1,000 years, twisting and altering his memories. Victoria. The Peace of Victoria is only a surface appearance. The capital Londinium has been without a king for over a decade, and while stable on the outside, the nobles and factions of Victoria have had many power struggles behind the scenes. Earl Vincent, who's doing all he can to keep the peace, specifically asked Kal'tsit to protect Thompson, who has the same goal in mind. There are even talks of a new king among certain factions, although this is before the Kazdel Civil War and Theresa's heading to Victoria, so we don't know what that will amount to. Kazdel. The information here comes from a letter sent 13 years ago, where Rose Island just got dug up, and Theresa and Theresa's haven't had their fallen out yet. They start their plan of rebuilding Kazdel, with Theresa's and his military commission ensuring that they proceed undisturbed by other nations. However, Theresa writes to Kal'tsit that the decisions Theresa's and his men are making is starting to go off course due to pressure, and she fears that other nations, once they realize that Kazdel has reunited, will wipe them out. We also learn of the royal courts, which includes the vampires and the banshees. Logos, whom you may be familiar with from Mudrock's story in Rewinding Breeze, is the successor of the Great Banshee. He's said to be young and long-lived, so I guess Bishonen Logos is something to look forward to. Ursus. I mentioned the sarcophagus previously, and to give a quick recap, the Ursus city Chernobog dug up this ancient machine and got some scientists to work on it, with Kal'tsit leading the team to prevent any mishaps. But after they caught a glimpse of what the machine, the sarcophagus, is capable of, they decided to seal it to prevent Ursus from using it as a weapon of war. This led to the massacre of the research team, but their efforts were not in vain, and now the machine only serves as an energy source for Chernobog. Then we have the Emperor's Blade. Every blade is a nation. The earth beneath their feet is Ursus' land. The blades are essentially the pinnacle of Ursus' military strength. Armed with the power of demon fragments contained within their armor through rituals, the blades form the royal guard and carry out the will of Ursus. So, what are demons? Well, no, I don't mean the Sarkas, who are only based off of demonic creatures. I'm talking about powerful, inhuman beings that exist outside our comprehension. Things that live outside this world in the far north and the far south. Things that gain power the more people know about them. Things that you can actually call demons. For thousands of years, the people of Terra fought against these beings. Sargon allied with the Keshig and fought down south with the Immortal Army. Sami created the snowy rituals, and Ursus fought demons with the Emperor's Blades. Nations completely shut down any information about them, with only the very top brass allowed to know. They're so powerful that the blades gain their strength with only fragments of demon corpses. In Integrated Strategies, the storyteller spoke of the Wendigo warrior who fought demons in the north. The frozen monstrosity that we faced was once part of Sami's snowy ritual, but fell prey to the demons. In Chapter 8, Patriot mentioned the Valley of the Setting Sun, where 20 royal guards died to enemies of other races. Now we know that they died to demons. That area, according to Kal'tsit, has turned into something that no longer belonged to this land, presumably as the demons are also things that don't belong on Terra. Had the blade detonated himself in Victoria, he would have spilled the same corruption there, and this wouldn't just simply be a matter of an Ursus royal guard showing up unannounced in a Victorian backyard. Their relation to the other gods of Terra is yet to be expanded on. So as if we didn't already have enough things to worry about on Terra, we now have literal demons. With all that being said, let's end off this video with Kal'tsit. Unfortunately, we still don't know where she came from or why she decided to walk this path. She's like a machine, endlessly wandering Terra, stopping wars, saving humans from themselves. She was there when Patriot left Kazdel in his youth, and she was there in old Ising's vision of the Pasha's march down south. But in the end, she's just one person, and one person can't do everything. Perhaps we, and Rose Island, can help her out. We don't know, and might never know, what her answer to Passenger's question is, so I'll leave that as food for thought.